I am, here we go, we're recording, and I am co-chair with Amy with our Council 8 of the Family Support Planning Council. We open this up to all 10 councils because this information is so important to all of us and for all of our families. So we welcome again Nicholl Vallee from DDD. Thank you so much for being here. Just going to read your bio.
Thank
So
you, Melanie.
Nicholl, yeah, so Nicholl is a transition and employment specialist with the Office of Transition to Adult Life and Employment in Mays Landing. Prior to her work with the Division of Developmental Disabilities, Nicholl served as a board-certified music therapist with New Jersey's Department of Health, a position she held for 7 years. And Nicholl is a dedicated advocate for schools, parents, and their children as they navigate the adult service system and the transition to adulthood and employment. So welcome, Nicholl. We're so happy to have you back.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And I really appreciate you having me tonight. I appreciate everyone's attendance on this Thursday evening, and we are going to talk transition. So I'm going to pull up my slides. And this presentation is really to help you navigate the adult service system, that transition from school services to adult services. And when we hear the word navigating, you may think of your vehicle's navigation system, plugging in a destination to take you the easiest route from point A to point B. But we know in life that's not always the case. Sometimes we hit roadblocks. There might be an accident along the way. But we do eventually get to where we need to go. So for purposes of this evening's presentation, I would like you to think of DDD as your navigation system, moving through this transition from school services to adult services. And as we shared earlier, there will be plenty of time for questions at the end of the presentation. A lot of what I am going to cover may answer some of those questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have once we do wrap up the presentation. So again, I'm Nicholl Vallee. I'm with DDD, specifically within the Office of Transition to Adult Life and Employment. So let's begin. This is our mission statement. DDD assures the opportunity for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality services and supports, participate meaningfully in their communities, and exercise their right to make choices. And we all want that right, to be able to make the best choices, not only for ourselves, but to help our loved ones make those choices also. DDD operates on a Medicaid-based fee-for-service system. So there are now standardized rates for those services. And payment is rendered now after services are delivered, whereas before the payment had been rendered prior to the delivery of services. This allows the consumer increased flexibility, choice, and again, the quality of those choices. We do operate on that Medicaid-based fee-for-service system. Federal and state funding is available for home and community-based services and supports for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Everyone who comes into our service system must be Medicaid eligible and maintain that eligibility throughout the time they utilize our services. Everyone who comes into the system accesses services through one of two programs. They are the Community Care Program, CCP, and that's for those who may need a higher level of care, those in nursing homes or group homes. And then most individuals come into the system through the Supports Program, SP. Services are accessed through Medicaid-approved providers, and service planning is provided through support coordination agencies. And I'll talk more about that later in the presentation. So who do we serve? Well, we serve adults at least 21 years of age, those diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities that occurred prior to the age of 22 and are considered lifelong, meet the functional criteria of having a developmental disability, be a resident of New Jersey, and again, be eligible for Medicaid. Now I'll talk a bit about the preparation to come into the adult service system. We really consider the transition years to be 14 to 21. So during that time, we do encourage families and schools, caseworkers, child study teams to reflect on 7 areas of a person's life that can support planning for success, for that meaningful and fulfilling life. We call this the RECIPES acronym. I'm going to briefly take us through these. We begin with R, responsibilities. So a student, a child, may have responsibilities at home on a weekly or monthly basis, and maybe they would like to increase their responsibilities as they age. Then we have education. So a student may have a favorite subject in school, and maybe this is something they would like to pursue on a post-secondary level in the adult service system. Community life, maybe a faith-based group or youth organization, something that the person is involved in that makes them feel good about themselves. How can we expand upon that into adulthood? And then we have individuals' health and well-being. This is a really important one because this gets to the heart of what makes someone feel good physically, emotionally, mentally. You heard in the introduction that I am also a board certified music therapist. So for me, music is what helps me to feel good. Playing music, singing and listening, writing music. I play a variety of different instruments. So for me, that's something that really gets to the heart of wellness for me. So that's what we're talking about with that health and well-being. Place to live. So a student probably lives at home with family at this time, but maybe in the future they would like their own apartment. So DDD does have its housing subsidy, housing voucher, which is part of the service system. Employment, another really important one because New Jersey is an employment first state, as many of you may know, and employment is the preferred outcome for everyone. And that's regardless of whether a person has a disability. And then finally, social life. So what does someone like to do for fun? Do they like to play video games or go to the movies with friends, play board games at home with family on the weekends? How can we enrich their social life in the adult system? So this is what we mean when we're discussing recipes. And we like to point out that our system is not a one-size-fits-all system. It is designed to meet the needs of the individual's goals for what their good life is going to look like as they get older. So we use person-centered planning tools as part of this process. One of those tools is what you see here, the life course trajectory. And this is really taking a look at a person's past experiences in life and how those past experiences can help the person to move forward into their future good life. A lot of times it's easy to take a look at what hasn't worked for us in the past to help us see what may work better in the future. So for example, a person may live in a more rural area. Maybe they'd like to switch it up a bit and maybe move into an urban environment, a city environment. So that's what we mean by looking at the past experiences and helping us to move into the vision of what that person wants in their future. Another tool is the integrated support star, taking a look at a person's current resources and helping to determine the resources they may need in the adult system. So at the top, personal strengths and assets, and those would be a person's skills, their life experiences and abilities. Relationships, so that could be relationships with family, friends, someone at the school that they're close with, maybe a mentor. Eligibility specific would be DDD services, and then perhaps the Division of Vocational Rehab Services, which is the shorter term employment support. If a person needs more long-term employment help, that follow-along support, they can use their DDD budget for that as they move forward in their employment journey. community-based. This would be faith-based healthcare facilities, those local public resources that everyone has access to. And then finally, technology. So this could be an assistive device, maybe an app that a student has on their phone that helps them get through the day a little bit easier. So it's important to identify a person's current resources in order to know what they will need in the future. And speaking of our available services and supports for those eligible to come into the adult system. This is a list on your screen, alphabetically, of all of the DDD services and supports. You'll notice on the left-hand column, cognitive rehabilitation is noted with an SP only after it. And what that means is this particular service is only available in our supports program. And below that, community transition services is only available in our community care program. Now, on DDD's website, both manuals for the supports program and the community care program are available. They list all of these services and supports, just like they are here alphabetically, but they list them in a lot greater detail. So I would encourage you to take a look at the website and take a look at what we offer in each program. It will give you a sense of what your child or the student that you're supporting may need to reach their goals. So for example, maybe they need transportation to get to and from a job, or they may be interested in a day program, which would be day habilitation. They might need environmental modifications to their home, maybe a wheelchair ramp to help them access the home a bit easier. So there are a lot of services and supports, including various therapies, that a person may have access to when they come into our system. And the steps to access services, we'll talk about that now. So this is a vision for support across the life course, beginning with early intervention, moving into children's services, and then into that transition period, the 14 to 21 year age range. So we do encourage families, if possible, to have their student, their son or daughter, remain in school until 21 to invoke that educational entitlement. That way, they can take advantage of the services that the school system offers until they come into the adult system. If a person is graduating at 18, we encourage you to have a firm plan in place for what that person's life is going to look like in the intervening 3 years prior to coming into adult services. Within the last year, there have been 2 exceptions made to the 21 and older age policy. Those exceptions are that if a person is graduating at 18, they are involved in competitive integrated employment, or they plan on attending a trade school or some type of post-secondary education that is not already funded through the division. So when they would apply for services, just as everyone does, no earlier than 18, they would let their intake worker know that this is the goal, that they would like to come into the system prior to 21. And at that point, in addition to the supplemental documentation that is already requested with the application, you may be required to present a pay stub or perhaps a letter of matriculation to post-secondary or trade school. So at that point, if that is the route that a person is pursuing, then they would talk to their intake worker and then take the process on from there. So transition planning, again, 14 to 21 years of age, those recipes that I discussed, and the person-centered planning tools, the life course trajectory, the integrated support star, as we're talking about building skills and supports that are needed to achieve adulthood goals. There's something we like to talk about, which is called Planning for Adult Life. And that's something sponsored by DDD. And it's run by the ARC of New Jersey. And they offer training sessions. They offer parent groups. There's something called Webinar Wednesdays, where they have a different transition-related topic that they present. But all of their webinars are archived on their site. So you can watch them at your convenience. And the site is there at the bottom of the screen. Planningforadultlife.org is that link. So right here, you see something that's very important. I'm going to tell you, you should print it out, have it on your fridge or your desk. This is the graduate timeline. So this provides a look at the 4 steps that are needed to enter the adult service system. And if a person is graduating at 21, when in that final year of eligibility, you should be taking those steps. It also lists our community services offices. There are 8 of them in the state of New Jersey. Mine has been Mays Landing, which just recently moved to Egg Harbor Township, but the numbers are the same. So I would keep this handy. Again, this is a very valuable tool as you're moving through the transition period. So these are the steps to access adult services. Step 1 is to apply for SSI Medicaid. So when a person turns 18, they are considered a household of 1. So family income is no longer factored in. Even if the person is still living in the family home, they are considered a household of 1. So SSI Medicaid is that first step, is to apply, because Medicaid is that secondary insurance that pays for DDD services. Step 2 would be to complete our full or short application. And the simplest way to explain the difference between the two is that the short application is for those who have been known to perform care to the children's system of care and have been previously determined DD eligible. The full application would be for those who are not known to perform care and have not yet been determined DD eligible. There isn't much difference between the two. So we do encourage families, if they're not sure which one to fill out, to go ahead and fill out the full application. Again, not much of a difference between the two. There may be some additional documentation required with the full, but the full is something that would suffice, again, if you're not quite sure. You can do that electronically through our website. The application is available on the DDD website, and you can mail the application, or you can drop it off to your closest community services office. Step 3 would be to complete something called the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool. It's also referred to as the NJCAT. So this is something that's completed as part of the intake process. Once the application and supplemental documentation have been received, the family, the applicant, will be contacted by our intake unit, who will schedule this assessment. And it's really a determination of a person's independence level. So if your child, your student, was left at home for a day or 2 on their own, with no assistance, no prompting, what would they be able to do on their own? And this NJCAT is really what determines a person's budget when they come into the adult service system. Finally, step 4 would be to complete the Support Coordination Agency Selection Form. So this would be the agency that helps to coordinate all of your students' or your child's services and supports once they come into our service system. It's usually completed a few months prior to when a person enters the service system. So applying for Medicaid, there are several types of Medicaid allowable in both the supports program and the community care program. So there's one that we do like to highlight in both, and that is NJ workability. So if a person is working a certain amount of hours, making a certain amount of money, they don't want to lose their eligibility, this is a great waiver to be on. There is no income limit with NJ workability at this time. That has recently changed. There used to be a limit of about $74,000 and an asset limit as well. That has also been eliminated at this time. So if your student, your applicant is working and they want to work more, but they're afraid about losing their benefits, they don't want to lose that eligibility, NJ workability could be the answer for them. Of course, if they are working with DVRS, benefits counseling is available to help address that issue and to decide which type of Medicaid is best for the person. It varies, of course, from person to person, and each situation is different. So when you do apply, if for some reason you receive a denial and you need extra assistance to handle this, our Medicaid eligibility help desk is a great resource. So I would highly suggest if this happens, which I hope it doesn't, but if it does, complete the Medicaid eligibility troubleshooting form. You would then attach the completed form to an email to our help desk, along with a copy of the denial letter that you received. And the help desk will then direct you on the best way to handle the appeal of this outcome. Again, step 2 is our application, and it determines whether a person has applied and is eligible for Medicaid, as discussed, and then also to determine whether the applicant meets the functional criteria of having a developmental disability. And that's why that supporting documentation is so important. We'll get to that in a moment. And of course, the NJCAT as well. That is that step after the application is received and processed. So as I had mentioned before, our short application in full on the left is the requirements for the full application I had explained. And then on the right, as you see, is the short application. So the requested documentation, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, the necessary documentation is listed, and you'll see on the right, helpful but not necessary. We do find that most families, most applicants, do submit the most recent IEP because that really does provide a good look at how the person is doing educationally, what that part of the journey has been like. Of course, we would need medical documentation of the disability, and then a lot of what you see below that would be available through the school system. We do ask that whatever you do submit from the school be recent if possible, within 3 years. I'm of the thought that more is great. So if you do have a lot of what you see there on the right, I would submit it. It can't hurt. And again, it just provides a clear picture of the applicant's progress. We also encourage you to have your student, your applicant, obtain a non-driver ID for persons with a disability. They may have done this already. You can do it as young as 14 years of age. It's useful not only for applying for DDD services, but also as proof of residency when applying for a job and other state services as well. It's an ID, of course, only. It's not a license, but you can reach out to the Motor Vehicle Commission, and online you can book an appointment. If you'd like to just go there and do it that way, just go in person, you can do that as well. But this is something that's a very valuable thing to have in terms of documentation. So again, the NJCAT, it assesses 3 main areas: self-care, behavioral, and medical. Again, it's completed as part of the intake process and establishes that budget. So we have a tier system. We have tiers ranging from A through E. A represents the least amount of need and E the most. Any of the tiers can result in what we call an acuity, which means that the person has been assessed at higher self-care and or medical needs, or rather behavioral and or medical needs. So as a result, there would be more money in the budget to address that acuity if a person is found to have the additional need. A reassessment of the NJCAT can be done upon request if you don't agree with the results of the assessment, but just know that the reassessed NJCAT then becomes the NJCAT of record. So as a result, that budget could increase or decrease depending on the results of the assessment. Again, the 5 base tiers can result in that acuity. The tier determines the individualized up to budget amount and then the service reimbursement rate for most services. So eligibility determination, this is how it works. So a person will receive their letter, then they will complete that support coordination agency selection form, and then begin accessing services. Now, they'll be contacted by an intake worker a few months prior to when services should begin, and they can initiate that process, that admission process. So what is support coordination? You may be really curious at this point if you don't already know. So it's really DDD's care management provided through Medicaid. This is helping those who are eligible to enter the system to gain access to services and to plan their goals for how they're going to use those services and supports through their budget. It is an administrative cost, the support coordination. It does not come out of a person's budget. This is purely a cost that is incurred by DDD. So you can either choose your own agency, or if you're not sure who you'd like to work with, you can have an agency auto-assigned by our system. And then that agency will assign a specific support coordinator who will work with the service recipient. We do have a full list of available agencies, and that can be found on iRecord in that system and at the link that you see there for provider search. So once a person has a support coordinator, they will meet with their planning team. So this is really, it could be family, it could be someone within the school system, a trusted friend. So the service recipient will meet with those people and discuss the goals, the outcomes, what the needs are, using that person-centered planning process that I was talking about earlier in the presentation. And then once that is completed, that process, an individualized service plan, the ISP, sort of the IEP, but for the adult system. That will then identify the goals, the outcomes, and then the providers who will help the person meet those goals. And then the person, the individual, and their support coordinator will participate in monthly contacts to see how things are going. When things are going well, that's great. To discuss with that person, and then letting them know if something needs to be changed in the service plan. So within 3 days of an agency being selected, the service recipient will be contacted by the support coordinator. And then within 10 days, they'll meet with that person and the planning team. Within the month, the ISP should be completed. And then services can begin once the person comes into the system and the ISP has been officially approved. So bringing this all full circle, we're looking at the assessment, the NJCAT. We're moving through to discovery, that person-centered planning process. And then finally, the ISP. Once that's approved, as I said, services can begin. So in the fall prior to graduation, if you haven't already done so, we want to make sure that the person is eligible for DDD and has Medicaid and has completed the NJCAT. We usually suggest if a person's coming into the system at 21, that they complete the NJCAT at 19, because we want it to be recent within 2 years. So then in February and March, you would submit that SCA selection form. In April, we will begin assigning those agencies. And then between April and June, you can begin that planning process with the support coordinator, and then the ISP will be approved, and then the person can begin to access services once they're 21 and they graduate. So these are some of the areas that are reviewed each month between the service recipient and the support coordinator. It isn't limited to these areas, but these are some of the topics that are often discussed. Health and safety, if there are any unusual incidents. Of course, the service plan. We want to know if the providers are doing their job. Maybe they need to be switched. Maybe a person is not 100% on board with their day program, and maybe they'd like to go to a different day program. So these are some of the issues that are discussed over the phone monthly, and then there's a quarterly face-to-face review, and then an annual in-home visit with the support coordinator. So back to the housing subsidy that I mentioned as part of the recipes. So you can be enrolled in the supports program or the community care program. So this is for someone who's seeking housing subsidy for a self-directed, unlicensed rental unit. So you have to have active Medicaid or current NJ-CAT, and then currently be receiving or planning to receive at least one DDD-funded disability-related service. And how it works is the person contributes 30% of their income towards the rent, and then the housing voucher will cover the rest. The total rent cost must be within our published rent standards, and a support coordinator can discuss the housing subsidy program with a service recipient if that is something that is of interest to the person. And also, we do have a web page that assists with information, questions related to the housing subsidy. There is even a video that shows you the process from start to finish. If you have questions now and you'd like to take a look at it prior to entering the service system, that's a great way to do it. So questions, we can have them directed to our housing subsidy help desk. And then there's the link for more information on everything that I just discussed. So we would like you to participate in more, of course, than just this evening's presentation. We have something called Transition to Adult Life presentations. Every third Thursday of the month, we have a Transition Thursday webinar series. So you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen to join our listserv. You'll receive updates on all of this and more. As you see on the right-hand side of the screen, we have something called Preparing for a Bright Future. So this is a firsthand experience of a person within our unit who is self-identified as having a disability. His name is Robert Jackson. He talks about his journey to working with the state, his life as a self-identified disabled person. It's a really great presentation, especially for students in school who are considering what their future is going to look like. So I would highly recommend that if that's something that you're interested in. Of course, we have the presentation that you are experiencing this evening. And then we have an employment presentation as well, which provides an overview of resources and supports that are available to those who would like to work and are disabled. And then some general resources for you. Our website, which I've been mentioning. It's a great one-stop shop for everything transition related and more. Again, the housing assistance, employment, you can apply for services, of course. Our applications are listed in a variety of languages on our website. So there is the link to come to DDD. And also you can go to Google and type in DDD New Jersey, and you can find it that way as well. And then the link for our community services offices and also the phone numbers. Again, I'm in Egg Harbor Township now, but that phone number has remained the same. So the office closest to you would be the office if you wanted to drop off the application or if you wanted to make an appointment in person to speak with someone in our intake unit, you could do it that way as well. Our division phone number there, and then an email for routine questions. I will also provide you with my personal email, my work email. If you have questions after this evening that you would like to ask, I am very happy to answer those for you. So our listserv, again, you can email us there at that link and write Division Update Subscribe in the subject line. We'll subscribe you to our listserv. And then there are the help desks. So the transition help desk is our unit. I help to run that desk. And then we have the support program, Medicaid eligibility again, and fee-for-service implementation desk. So thank you so much. I know that this was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. And I know the process can be stressful. There can be frustration and anxiety related to all of this. But this is why we are here. We're here to help you. We're here to answer any of the questions you have, help allay your fears. And we want you to know that these services are lifelong adult wraparound services. So a lot of families have said that knowing that provides them with a measure of comfort, knowing that their loved one will be cared for in the best way that we can care for them. So, again, thank you so much for joining, and thank you to everyone who has organized this for having me. And at this point, I will turn it over for questions if there are any.
Yes, there are. We have a couple. One I really think should be a one-on-one with you.
Okay.
But as a part two of this situation, and this was one of the questions I had that I wanted to ask you for our group. So, DDD services, you talked about the transition timeline. What about those individuals who are older who never went through that transition into DDD at 21? And we've also had family members who have brought their siblings over from a different state into New Jersey that may have had services in another state but coming here. Can you speak to that, accessing DDD when you're a little bit older and then coming from a different state?
Sure. So each state has a different program. So when you move from another state, you would have to enroll here in New Jersey. And for those who are 21 and older, the process would be the same. It just wouldn't be that timeline. That would be the same, for those who are entering their final year of eligibility, education wise, but those steps remain the same. We have to make sure that someone has Medicaid. We have to have them apply either which most likely would be the full application for those who are older or moving from another state. We would have them fill out our full application, and then they would do the NJCAT as well, and then that final support coordination step. So all of the steps are the same. It's just that graduate timeline applies to those in their final year of educational entitlement.
Okay, thank you. And I
Hmm.
will have that name, I'll write that name down too for the one that I think should reach out to.
Oh, sure. Now, should I put my email in the Q&A or the chat?
Um, Kyoko already
I
put it in the chat.
Yes. Oh, great. Thank you, Kyoko. Yeah.
Kyoko has been putting lots of stuff in the chat, resources.
Okay. I
She's
see that
wonderful.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't able
Um,
to look at it prior because, of course, I was presenting. So
right,
that
exactly.
is wonderful. You ladies are terrific. Thank you so much.
And the next question is, have there been any changes recently where an individual can apply for DDD at the age of 18?
Yes. So that was the two exceptions that I mentioned. If someone is already involved in competitive integrated employment, or if they're planning to attend a trade school or post-secondary education that's not already funded through DDD. Those would be the two exceptions. So when you would apply, you would make sure the intake worker knows that that is the intention, that you don't necessarily want to wait until 21. You'd like to come in prior to that, and that those are the applicant meets one of those two requirements for early entry. Those are the
Okay.
two current exceptions. That may change in the future. There may be additional exceptions that are made, but as of now, those are the two exceptions where a person may come into the system prior to 21.
Uh, we have another one who says, thank you for the presentation.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
she,
Welcome.
yeah, she's working on getting her son a state ID. He's living in a group home. Should
Hmm.
he use his home address or the group home address? He's been in the group home for 2 years.
Oh, I would use the group home address. Yeah, if that's his address and where he's living and that's where he's getting his mail, then yeah, I think that I think that that's where he should have it sent.
Okay. And then Yes, another person asked about having a copy of the slides and access to the recording. Yes, it is recorded, and Kyoka will get that out within like 24 hours or so. So yes, you were going to get the copies of the slide and the recordings. Um, I have a comment just because of my own personal experience. With the support coordinators, once you get through the process, get approved for DDD, and you're connected with a support coordination agency and a support coordinator who is working directly with your loved one. I always like to say this because I did not know what my options were. The first support coordinator for my daughter was not effective.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't find any, I mean, and I waited a year, which I felt was too long. There was nothing spent out of the budget. The programs weren't there. It was really challenging for
I'm
me.
so sorry to hear that.
But then I, asked around and found a really good support coordination agency that we've been with.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy now. And so I just want
Good.
to just kind of give that advice to families that if you're not happy with the support coordinator, then maybe there could be another one at that agency, or if you're not happy with that agency, you can switch. That's your right. You can switch. Can you
Yes.
talk about the process for that?
Sure, absolutely. And you're right, you can switch and you don't have to stay with an agency for a year in order to be able to make that switch. I'm sorry that you experienced that. We'd like to think that all agencies are created equal. But as we know in life, things aren't necessarily always working the way we would like them to work. And all we ask is that the family works with an agency for at least a month prior to initiating a change. But you can change agencies as many times as you feel the need to. And like you said, Melanie, even to change a coordinator within the agency, that is also perfectly acceptable. We do recommend that families, if they can, when they're going through this process, that they speak with other families, maybe who have been through the process already, and to get an idea of which agencies have worked for those families and maybe the agencies that really haven't worked for the families. It's sort of like picking a doctor, when I don't want to oversimplify it because it really is not a simple process. But you want to talk to people who you trust, people who have been through this process before, that may be able to help you make a decision. So a lot of the schools do have parent groups where parents from children who have graduated before often offer assistance to parents who are coming into the adult service system and helping them to choose a coordinator. And there are also too a lot of transition fairs throughout New Jersey that are taking place as we speak. And a lot of support coordination agencies, of course, attend those events, have tables at those events. So that's also a really good way to connect with agencies, see where they're located, how they may be able to work with your son or daughter, and if you feel comfortable with them. I think, if you feel comfortable having a conversation with someone and you get a good vibe from them, you feel like you have a good connection, then that's a good start.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I know, like, even in our groups, the Family Support Planning Council, that's a question that comes up and families share their experiences. And so,
Yes,
you don't know until you speak to other families. So thank you for
exactly.
all of those ideas.
Oh, you're
Um,
welcome. I was at a school the other day, even giving a presentation, and one of the social workers at the school has a list of day programs that are really good in working with the families in that area. And she shared it with parents that are going through the process who were at the presentation, gave them a list of different day programs, what they offer, where they're located. So, a lot of the schools are really good at honing in on those things. And I think each year it seems like they're getting better at that. I think they're realizing the value of providing this information to families.
and then the families can take that information and do some interviews. Like, you don't have to just pick one,
Yes.
you can interview several agencies and see which one might be the best fit.
Yeah, and even day programs,
Yeah.
go and visit the day program. That's the best way to see, and you want to see where your son or daughter could potentially be spending a lot of their time. What is the vibe like? Is it supportive? Are the people that run it kind? Are they supportive? And I think it's important to see places in person to really get, to be able to ascertain what that is going to be like for their child.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see. We got a couple more questions that came in. Okay, with the possible budget cuts, is there a way we could be made aware of any changes or cuts in advance?
As soon as we know about any changes at all, we will let families know immediately. We have not been made aware of anything related to that, any type of changes. So as soon as we know, as soon as they tell us what's happening, we will be sharing it immediately with families.
And is that on the listserv as well, like when those announcements come out?
Yes,
Joining
absolutely.
the listserv would give
I would, yeah, for several reasons, the listserv is an invaluable tool to have.
the next person wants to know how to get a letter documenting her daughter's tier and budget amount. She was reassessed last year and her tier was changed. She did not receive a letter. The support coordinator knows the new budget, but says that she has to contact DDD to get a letter confirming the new tier and budget. So
So
who would
that
you
would
contact?
that would come from the intake worker. If the support coordinator is saying that she needs to contact DDD, then that would be whoever was handling that person's application. So that would be the applicant's intake worker.
Okay.
Yeah, they would have that information because it would be part of our intake to do the NJCAT, which is what determines the budget.
One person just made a comment, getting calls back from support coordination agencies has been a challenge for them.
I'm sorry to
Uh,
hear that.
uh, is there a list of family support councils who meet or have support groups? If you're looking for a family support planning council, there are 10 councils throughout the state. So every county is involved in one of our councils. So, Kyoko, I don't know if you can put in the chat a link to the brochure or the website that has all the councils listed and the emails. So then you can just email your county's council and then get on their email list and then be able to find out when their meetings are. Some are in person, some are on Zoom. Like our council still does Zoom because we have 3 counties and it's really widespread down here in the South. So, but other counties are meeting in person because they're not like an hour away from each other for the meeting.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so we'll get you that information so you can join your local council. And oh, as a follow-up, who has the name of the intake worker from DDD for the application?
That should be the family should have that information because that would have been the person that they would have been interacting with throughout the process.
So is that the one who, not necessarily the one who did the NJ CAT, but
No, not necessarily. It could be. Oftentimes they do overlap, but it wouldn't have to be. It would be the person that um, had processed the application. If that person wants to reach out to me, I could probably look it up in our system to see
okay.
who who that person would be. I would be happy to do that. If they want to contact me via email, I can see what I can find.
Okay, perfect.
Hmm.
Are there any, that was the last of the questions here. Are there any other questions? Oh, here comes another one. Does DDD schedule transition fairs and are there any in Cumberland County that you know of?
We don't schedule them. We attend them. We usually get an invitation from whatever agency is sponsoring the event, and then we attend the event. I believe there was one last week, actually, on the 3rd in Cumberland County. I don't know if there's any coming up. I know that Pensgrove Carney's Point is doing one on May 1st from 6 to 8.
When is that? Where
That's
is
going to
that? The school?
be
at the high
I
school?
believe so. I can actually pull it up right now if you don't mind waiting just one
That's,
second. I want to get the
that's,
details for you.
yeah, that's my alma mater. And we're right next
Oh,
to Cumberland,
okay.
so.
Okay. So yes, Pennsgrove Carneys Point Regional School District. It is on May 1st, and it's from 5 to 7, actually. It's called Spring into Wellness. So it's their spring wellness fair, and there will be, I know, just from having attended these in the past, there will be support coordination agencies there. They'll have tables there
And
for people.
did it have the location? Did you say the location I was writing?
Oh, I can pull that up too. Let me just see here. And if you'll humor me, I have my own survey, if you don't mind completing it. We really appreciate it because it gives us an idea of, what we're doing right and maybe what we need to change. Should I put that in the chat or the Q&A?
Um, in the chat.
Yeah, in the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kyoko. Yeah, I would really appreciate it. It's very quick. Um, it won't take you long, and I so appreciate it. I'm pulling the calendar up here again. Let's see. May 1st. The location is 334
Harding Highway?
Harding Highway, yes, in Carneys Point, and the zip is 08069.
Yeah, that's the high school, Pennsgrove High School.
Yes. So that's the closest one that I know of that is coming up in May.
Okay. And a lot of those, at least the ones I've talked to, support coordinators, they cover both counties. So that would, if you can make that, even though you're Cumberland County, that you'll probably see those agencies that cover both of our counties.
Yeah, and I'll be there too. I will be in
Oh,
attendance.
good.
Yeah, so if there's, questions even that come up that evening that someone has, I'll have a table there. I'll be actually there with someone from our intake unit. So we'll be there together.
Good, good. Another question came through. Is it wise to go through health insurance for physical therapy, speech therapy, etc., so it does not take from the budget?
I think that's a personal decision. Um, if you had the funding to do it, I would go through the DDD budget for that. I think at the time, that the decision needs to be made, I think maybe the support coordinator might be able to help you understand how best to allocate the funds. Maybe that will help make that decision easier. But, that's what the budget is there for. It's there to help, as much as possible. So depending on, your son or daughter's tier and their budget amount, maybe make that decision then. If you'd rather use the funding for something else and then have your private insurance pay, that would be a personal decision, I think, to make when the time comes, when you understand really what the best way to utilize the budget will be.
And I think sometimes with the health insurance, you only have so many visits per year too. So if that's exhausted through your health insurance, maybe having some money allocated in the budget to supplement whatever the
Hmm.
insurance doesn't cover
Yeah, that's a good
would
idea
be a
too.
consideration.
Hmm.
Well, right now, yep, that's our last question right now.
Okay.
Any final thoughts?
From me?
Yeah, yeah, from you.
Well, how much time do we have? No. The questions were wonderful. First of all, very every one of these presentations, I get different questions, and they're all just really relevant, to the situation, I think, to the person's experience. And really, ultimately, hopefully, the takeaway is that you can really, person can use their services to best fit what's going to make them have a good life, what's going to make their life the best life they can live. And to know that services are available, that these are lifelong services, hopefully someone can feel good about that and know that they have the tools that they need to succeed and have a happy life.
And using the charting the life course tools that you had, the trajectory and the star.
Yeah.
A lot of us have been trained in that in our Family Support Planning Council, and so
Mhm.
we promote that. And for DDD to really embrace those tools to make a person-centered life for what the person wants has been a fabulous, um, a, really a change in attitude in helping our families, like you said, live their best life the way they want to live it, and working towards what makes them happy. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, because we're adults a lot longer than we're children. And adulthood can be complex, it can be stressful, but we want it to be good too for people. We want them to feel good about themselves. And everybody wants to feel good about themselves. That's like a universal desire. The older I get, the more I hear that from people. They just want to be happy. They
Mhm.
want to live a life where they're surrounded by things and people that they love, and they're doing the things that make them feel good. And that's what we want for people. We want to be able to provide that as much as we can.
Wonderful. All right, so I think our time is up. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for all of this information.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you, I have to say, you did a fabulous job speaking through all of this information and not going super fast through it all because there was a lot, but being able
I
to like,
try not to.
yeah, saying it at a pace that you can kind of absorb it while you're reading it. So I appreciate that.
Oh, you're
Um,
welcome, Melanie.
but lots and lots of good information. Thank you for um, giving us your email so people can contact you directly, because I think you'll get a
Hmm.
couple of contacts based on our
Great.
questions. And and just thank you for being here for our families.
Oh, you're so
Yeah.
welcome. You make it so easy. Amy, thank you. Kyoko, you're all just so nice. And I can just tell that you care so much about your families too. And it is so nice to be able to work with people who are also invested in this. So thank you also.
All right. Kyoko, is there anything else? The so we have what, two surveys, right, for people to complete. So if you could
Yes.
click those links and complete those surveys, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes. So,
And we will definitely
oh,
have you back, Nicholl.
oh, thanks so much, Melanie. I really enjoy this, and I was really looking forward to it actually, because it's just you make it so easy, and I really enjoy my time with all of you. So thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I guess we'll just give a couple minutes for people to access the survey, and then we'll give you the rest of your nights back to you. And the recording and the slides will be available in the next day or so. And I know for Council 8 anyway, I'm got minutes here with links to all of the good resources that Kyoko put in the chat for us. So that'll be distributed as well.
Yeah, thanks again, Kyoko, for handling that. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, ladies.